Hi there, I'm Cindy Daychuck with Cream Bee Creations and welcome to the channel. If this is your first time, I would love it if you'd give a thumbs up, subscribe, keep us coming into your feed, and if you have been here before, thanks for tuning in again. This week we are going to do something with these jugs. I had a lovely customer of the shop who had asked if I had any need of some of these. And I didn't necessarily have a need, but I had a want. So what we're gonna do is a cool craft, giving you some ideas of what you could do with some items like this that you may have in your home. We're gonna make them look old, and we're gonna do something pretty cool with it that's going to help it be something that goes from being stored maybe in your crawl space or basement and out as part of your decor. So the first thing that we need to do is we need to get these babies painted. And I am going to paint them out. I want them to have a little bit of a crock like an old crock look to it. So I'm going to paint it out in Prairie Gray from DIY Paint. And this is a clay-based paint, so it will ultimately stick to the glass, no problem, but it is gonna take 2 coats. The first coat goes on kind of thin and kind of streaky, but this becomes our base, that the second coat is gonna be able to go on and be layered over top and stick. So no magic to this stage. I have 3 of these big jugs, and I'm gonna paint all 3 of them out with 2 coats of Prairie Gray. All right, while my jugs are all drying, I did want to cut out some fabric pieces. We're gonna do some labels to put onto the jugs. And I want to do them in a worn fabric look. So what I do have is some brand new drop cloth fabric. And all that I did was cut out some rectangular pieces that are going to go on the jugs. Now, I did cut them out a little bit bigger than what I think that I want, because I'm going to toss them in the washer at home and into the dryer. So they're going to shrink a bit. And I'm hoping that they kind of fray so that I get these nice frayed, fringed areas. So I'm going to, I need 1 for each of them, so 3. And I'm thinking that it's going to fray. The other thing I'm going to do is I'm going to cut out 3 pieces of my actual really old used drop cloth that's lying over on the floor. So the actual paint drop cloth. And I'm gonna wash it and see if it frays. So I'm gonna see which one I like best before we start stamping, and I'll show you both. But I'm just gonna go get the old dirty, ratty one, which is much thicker than this fabric, but I want a comparison of kind of the old used to the brand new, and we'll see which look appeals to me more once they're all washed and done. I think a lot's going to depend upon the frame. Now you can see that I got out my sewing machine, because before I washed these and fray them, I decided that it would maybe make sense to put a sewn border, maybe about 1/2 inch to 3/4 inch inside. So just in essence, sewing a square all around the outside of that label, just so that it doesn't over fray. I'm not sure how much this fabric will fray or not fray, but you can see it's already doing it. And it hasn't been washed yet. So I'm hoping that that stitch line slows it down, that it doesn't then fray beyond that point. So I'd end up with a fringe that is roughly the same size as that sew line. And that makes sense. So I've cut out the 3 labels for each of my 3 jugs out of the fabric that I showed you, but I also cut up some old drop cloth. So you can see it is definitely dirty. I mean, it's gonna get washed, so it's gonna be fine, but it is covered in paint. And I'm gonna do the same thing for those labels because I wanna see which ones I like best, which ones fray more, which ones I like better on the jugs. You know, it's good to have options. So I'm gonna do the same thing for those. I'm gonna sew that border around there just so that, again, if this frays a lot, and I really don't know how much this is gonna fray, especially since it's got paint all over it, but we'll see. So that's what I'm up to, and just keeping you in the loop. Our jugs have had 2 coats of our DIY paint in Prairie Gray, and they've had a chance to dry thoroughly. So now we are looking to seal them. And I am going to be using clear wax from DIY and just covering the entire jug in the wax. And I'm gonna want the wax to have dried thoroughly as well. So I'm going to apply the wax and I'm going to wipe off any excess and then leave it to dry definitely overnight before I'm applying any labeling, or a couple of days. And that's only because ultimately at some point I'm going to want to be gluing the labels on, and they'll stick to the wax as long as the wax isn't still all just wet and freshly applied. So I'm just going to let the surface dry thoroughly. I'll probably buff it up to a bit of a shine with a lint-free cloth, and then we'll be ready to take a look at doing our labels. But you can see that that wax brings back that nice rich dark color of the Prairie Gray, which makes it look a little bit more jug-like, right? So this is it dry. This is it with the wax applied. And as the wax dries, it'll lighten up a little bit, but it'll never get as light as this. It's still gonna stay kind of that rich, deep, dark, taupey gray color, which is gonna be great because our labels are a much lighter color. Jugs have had a chance to dry overnight. So at this stage, all I'm doing is taking a dry, clean, lint-free rag, and I'm just kind of buffing out the wax a little bit so you can see that it's adding a little bit of shine to it. It starts to make it look a little bit more like it's pottery and less like it's painted. So I'm not looking for anything major, but just smoothing it all out, creating a nice surface for our label when we go to attach it. So, polished, not polished, your choice. Somehow I hit a weird button and we have no sound and I'm super fast, but all I'm doing in this is taking the fabric and stenciling on with the JRV crockery stamp the labels that I want, and I opted for the old drop cloth. I then took E6000, spread it on the back, glued them onto the crocs, and then I cut off the spiky part of some upholstery tacks and glued them into the corners just for a little bit of extra touch. And here you can see the final results. I love them.